everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm so excited to show you how to make this gorgeous dress. This is the Rosa Kiss dress, a design that I created especially for Valentine's Day. It has a lovely sweetheart neckline and 8 godets that give such a beautiful movement. This pattern actually includes 2 length versions, a high-low length and a classic midi length. In this tutorial, we'll be fully lining the dress, but you can totally make it unlined if you prefer. It also has an invisible zipper on the side and adjustable straps for a perfect fit. I link the pattern I use in the description box below. Before we start sewing, we need to stabilize some edges. The neckline, for example, is curved and cut slightly on the bias, which means it can stretch out a bit and get snapped or distorted over time. For the armholes, I prefer stage stitching to stabilize them because it reduces the bulk. So set your stitch length a little bit shorter than you normally would and stitch along the armhole on the 2 side front pieces. Remember to keep the fabric flat to avoid stretching it out. And for the neckline, I am going to use infusible tape. Cut 4 strips that match the measurements of these 4 top edges. Then place the adhesive side of the stay tape on the wrong side of the fabric and use heat to glue it on. Next, we search on the side edges of the 8 panel pieces from the top down to the notches that mark where the goddess will be inserted. For a clean finish later, I suggest you to search about an inch past the notch, then move the panels to the side and finish searching like this. Now we can sew the panels together. Simply align the 8 panels in order. We start with the front first. There are notches on the pattern to guide you in matching these panels. Pin them together with the right sides facing each other. Just a little note here, we will only pin them down to the notches that indicate where the goddess will be inserted later. Then we'll do the same for the back and join them at the right side. This layout will leave the long side open where we will sew the zipper in later. Okay, now bring the whole piece to your sewing machine and sew the panels together. Again, start stitching at the godette position. At the princess seam, you need to ease the fabric a little bit since they are reversed curves. Just take your time here to have the fabric stay flat under the needle. Then press the seams open. At the cup areas, you can make some little snips in the seam allowance to have it lie nice and flat. Now let's move on to the invisible zipper installation. I find it super helpful to press the cords away from the zipper tip like this. It makes the stitching so much easier later. Let's start with the front garment. The plastic zipper head should be just 1 cm below the underarm point like this. And the right side of the zipper tape gonna touch the right side of the fabric. Continue to align and pin the tape edge along the side seam down to the notch that marks where the end of the zipper placement is. Now, if you're a pro, you can totally skip this step, but I find it very useful to base the zipper into the garment first. You can absolutely do this with your machine, but I will just do it by hand. Next, zip up the zipper and with the right sides together, pin the other side of the zipper to the back piece side seam. Let's line up everything up nicely here. Do another basting stitch on this side. The whole point of making this basting stitch is to check if everything matches well and there's no bumps and looms before we sew the zipper in permanently. Okay, it looks pretty good now. We're going to switch to a proper invisible zipper foot to sew the zipper in. After checking that the zipper is aligned correctly, we need to sew the rest of the seam below the zipper. I like to start at the hem and then go all the way up, ending right at the point where the zipper seam ends. Like this way, we can ensure a continuous seam. My zipper is a little bit too long, so I'm going to cut it, leaving about 2 cm below where the zipper ends. Okay, my seam isn't perfectly lined up here, so I'm gonna need to redo it. Then we're going to press the seam open. onto the godets. We have 8 godet pieces from small to large, and they need to be placed in specific splits. Here's the diagram to show you exactly where each one goes. First, take the godet and double check its position using the diagram. Then insert it into the slit, always with the right sides touching each other. Check the corner and make sure that it matches exactly where the slit starts. Put a pin right there to hold it in place. Pin the 2 sides of the godet to the 2 sides of the slit. Repeat this step for the other 7 godet pieces. All the edges should match in length, and if they don't, you might have inserted a godet into a wrong slit. This is what it should look like. Now bring the whole piece to your sewing machine. We're going to stitch all of the godets into the garment. Starting at the bottom, stitch all the way up to the corner. It has to be right at the corner where we put the pin in earlier. Then lift the needle and rotate the garment 90 degrees and continue to sew the other side. Repeat this for all of the other godets. After sewing them together, we serge the edges. Always keep the godet side facing up, always. And then we start at the bottom just like when we sew them. Serge all the way up, stop right at the corner, lift the needle, rotate 90 degrees, and continue to serge the other side. And there you have it, the godets are in. Okay, we need to prepare the adjustable shoulder straps. Take the 2 fabric strips, fold them in half lengthwise and sew with a 1 cm seam allowance, leaving the 2 ends open. If you have a loop turner, you can use it here to turn the tube right side out. I don't have one here with me now, so I'm just going to use a hand sewing double threaded needle. Making sure that it's firmly attached at one end with the eye of the needle, I'm going to insert it into the casing and push it through until the needle comes out to the other side. Then pull the fabric right side out like this. Another way to avoid the hassle of turning the tube right side out is to simply fold the strips edges to the center and sew along the side like this. I personally prefer the cleaner version, so that's why I took the extra step. Okay, next, if you don't have a set of sliders and rings, or simply just don't want to make the strap adjustable, just skip this step. Try the dress on to figure out how long the strap should be and then jump to the next step. Here I'm gonna demonstrate how to make them adjustable. So from each strap, cut an 8 cm long piece to make the back strap piece. Slide each of these 8 cm long straps to the ring and fold it in half. Then stitch along the end to secure it. Slide the longer strap piece through the slider to create a small loop in the center and leaving a tail at one end. And slide the tail through the ring and slide the end of the tail through the furthest side of the slider. Loop the tail around and then slide it through the other side of the slider. Pull it through here. Slide to set the distance between the ring and the slider to approximately 12 cm. Align the end of the tail with the understrap, and we're gonna secure it with den stitches here. Then take your garment with the right side together, base the end of the straps where the ring is to the back body pieces. I just positioning the strap just next to the seam between the side back and the center back. And before basting the straps to the front, maybe just try the dress on to see if any length needs to be trimmed off from the front. Then place the strap ends at the neckline corners. At this step, please make sure that the strap is not twisted. I didn't do it and had to rip up some seams at the end. Okay, moving on to the lining. You have only 8 pieces for the panels. The lining won't have godets. But be careful when cutting. You have to place the pattern on top of the wrong side of the lining fabric instead of the right side. This is because the lining should be the mirror piece of the main shell. The lining should be shorter than the main shell so it remains hidden when the garment is worn. To do this, we're going to trim off 3 cm from the hemline of all the lining panels. It's also slightly smaller than the main shell at the armhole and the neckline to ensure a smooth fit inside. So we also trimmed 2 mm from the armhole curve and the neckline on the side front and the center front pieces. Then just arrange the panels as we did for the shell. For the lining, we will sew panels together first, then search the seams after, instead of searching each edge separately like the main shell. It will be less bulky, cleaner, and quicker. Then press the seams to one side. Crop your garments and place it right side up, then lay the lining on top with their right sides touching each other. Align the neckline of the 2 layers together and pin them in place. Sew the neckline with 1 cm seam allowance. Then we'll trim the seam allowance down to 5 mm to make it easier to turn the garment right side out, and also to have the neckline lie flat when worn. At the deep V of the sweetheart neckline at the center front, clip the seam allowance straight to the deepest point of the V, but be careful not to cut into the stitching. This snip will have the corner lie flat when turned the right side out. Then understitch the neckline seam allowance. Here you won't be able to reach deep into the corner, but that's okay, just stitch as far as you can. When ironing the neckline, roll the lining slightly to the inside of the seam so it remains hidden from the right side. Now with the wrong side facing out, open the zipper and match the lining side seam to the zipper tape. It will look like the zipper tape is sandwiched between the lining and the main shell. We're gonna pin from the zipper top stop to the bottom stop. We're gonna stitch the lining side seam to the zipper tape, sewing as close to the zipper teeth as possible. After we complete it, all the raw edges will be hidden inside like this. We will still need to close the lining side seam under the zipper. Align the 2 edges of the lining side seams together, pin them in place, and then sew them up with a 1 cm seam allowance. You need to stop precisely at the zipper stop to ensure a continuous seam, just like how we did with the main shell. Okay, last step, the hemline finishing. I will show you the baby hem technique, which is a tiny rolled hem. So we fold 1 cm from the raw hemline toward the wrong side of the fabric. Then stop stitch as close to the folded edge as possible, approximately 3 mm. Now trim the excess seam allowance as close to the stitching line as possible, being careful not to cut into the stitches. The closer you trim, the easier it will be to roll the edges and sew the next line. Roll the hem up again to the wrong side and create a tiny fold. Stitch down another line on top of the first stitch like this. And here you have a beautiful, neatly clean baby hem. And then you are done. Your dress is now finished. I hope you enjoyed watching this tutorial, and if you decided to making one, I hope you love how yours turned out. In the meantime, I'll be making another tutorial on how to make this dress without lining, maybe in midi length. So by the time you're watching this, if I already posted the tutorial, I will link it below in the description box. Okay, that is a wrap for this Rosa Kiss dress. I see you in the next one. Bye!